started here?
Let's get into it. We got some good stuff to dive into today. A couple quick logistics. Keep checking in with your mentors. Drop in the chat who's been talking to their mentor on a daily, weekly, monthly. Susie and team and the Admirals are doing an amazing job with our shipper success team. I think it's one of the coolest parts of the captain's table is that you get the opportunity to come back as a member of the shipper success team, lead other shippers through. You'll kind of join a small group, get to learn a lot of leadership lessons. We're really excited to continue building that out. Susie and the team are doing a tremendous job there. So big thank you to them, and keep checking in with them, especially as we go into week 4. Ups and downs, you have someone to rely on, and we love that part of the program. So keep on doing that. Keep your eye out for early captain's table invites. If you've gotten yours already, amazing. We are trickling those out. And the more badges you've claimed, the higher up you are on the wait list. You have to have filled out the goal survey, all that. But most of those are going to be hitting Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of next week. So keep your eyes on the lookout for that. And then next live call is Tuesday at 12 p.m. We'll talk about credibility, positioning yourself as an authority, rewriting your bio, and in general, kind of give you a primer on what it means to become known for a niche you own.
Epic. That's a really great session if you can make it. Awesome. All right, let's see who hasn't fallen overboard. Let's see who we still got rocking and rolling. Looks like the A's are crushing it.
Boom. Look at those badges. How many badges is that? 3, 6, 9, 12, 16? We had 16 badges. A lot of good folks here. I think, especially as we continue to get into the later weeks, this gets smaller and smaller. So 15 badges, 15 for 15. Amazing, amazing work.
We got 4 Fs holding it down. Way to be. Way to be. Look at the J's. J's are still coming in hot.
There you go, David. Staying on that list. Hey, if you're following the course checklist, you are on this list every single week. So that's all you got to do is follow the course checklist, check these boxes off, claim your badges. Simple enough. Continue to write every day.
The last 2 Z's.
2 Z's. The 2 Z's, just like that. All right. So what we have going today, some more gold doubloons. This is my favorite part. I think this is my favorite part of every live session. We're giving away 2 more lifetime TypeShare Premier subscriptions today. Now, how we're going to claim them today. We got a lot of different ways we could do this one. Here's what we're going to do. The 16th person, 16, so there's some strategy here on how quickly you roll this out. 16th person to type burn the chapeaus, all caps, 3 words, all caps, burn the chapeaus. Burn the chapeaus, all caps. There we go. All right, that's it. Someone is there. So burn the chapeaus are all about, Cole, you want to tell the story of a chapeau? Where does that come from?
The legacy writing world, right? It's this false belief you got to run away to the cabin. You only pack a couple things. You pack your corncob pipe. You pack your chapeau.
I'm going on mute so I can count. We got to count 16 people who counted it correctly. So I'll go one by one of who did it correctly so we can keep count. Okay. Michael, 1. David, 2. Arvin, apostrophe, doesn't count. Marcia, 3. Michael, 4. Samantha, 5. David, 6. Michael, 7. Jennifer, 8. Pia, 9. Manon, nope, doesn't count. Mallory, 10. Jack, 11. Brandon, 12. Tamisha, 13. Kimberly, oh, no, it doesn't count. Evan, 13. Nope, that one doesn't count. Pernil, 13. Matthew put an exclamation point. Doesn't count. Lowercase. Oh my gosh. Holland. Okay, Holland is 14, right? I think. Holland, 14. Tanya, 15. Randy, 16. Boom, Randy. First winner.
We have a winner.
We said 2. So Bernard, you're right after you win the second one. That's right. Go. There's 7. There's both of them. And that is the final ruling. If I counted miss correctly, it is what it is. Bernard and Randy, 2 Typeshare Premier lifetime subscriptions. Amazing, amazing. We'll be in touch with your codes after the call. All right, let's keep going.
That's right. Okay. We're going to have to keep getting more creative with these. All right. There were a couple really cool shout outs we wanted to flag this week around opportunities that happen as you start writing on the internet. So one here, Angel saying, got a message from a tech CEO reading, just reading the work and deciding, hey, let's book a meeting, maybe become a client. This is not a rare thing. This happens all the time on the internet. And so when you write and you publish and you share, all of a sudden these people start coming out of the woodwork and going, hey, what you wrote aligns with the way I see the world. I would love to talk to you. And this is, Karen in the chat, 3 new meetings as a result of the regular posting. This happens all the time. There is no greater way. In the captain's table, we call this building your opportunity flywheel. The more you write, the more you use your writing to build assets, the more opportunities come your way. It's like gravity. Really, really great job. Same thing with Chris here. First coaching unsolicited client for a business I don't have. So all of a sudden now you start unlocking these opportunities where people come to you and say, I have a problem and I'd like you to help me solve this problem, or I have an idea, I'd like you to help me build this idea. So it's almost like opportunities come for things that you don't even have built yet. That is an amazing thing that the internet unlocks, and that writing is the easiest way of unlocking that. Andy, two things to celebrate. One, I've noticed most followers are starting to come not from within the Ship 30 community. We hear this a lot. We're going to talk about it in the data today, but don't get it confused. Like, it's not just people in Ship 30 reading your stuff. There is absolutely a layer of readers that is happening outside of the Ship 30 ecosystem. And the more that you do it, the more you're going to notice that happen. And then 2, my tweet about running, including one used of Hal Higdon's training plans, got retweeted by Hal himself. Again, this happens all the time. When you write in social environments, you naturally attract these people where you go, I never would have gotten in contact with this person. It's really, really cool. And here, if anyone's taken Tiago Forte's Building a Second Brain, really great course, same thing, right? You write about a topic and that person goes, I love what you wrote. I want to share it. This is curation at its finest. You go curate either an insight or a story or a takeaway from someone else. The likelihood that that person goes and sees that is very high. Whenever people curate my own work or they curate Dickie's work, we typically like to retweet it, right? Because you just saved us the trouble of having to curate it ourselves. So massive unlocks here. I love pinpointing these wins because these are not outlier events. These happen every single day, and it's very easy to unlock them. So really great job.
Yep. Keep sharing those wins. We'll continue to shout them out. Awesome stuff. Keep that going. All right. Ship 30 course guide. Here's where we are. Still using the course guide, still checking your boxes off, hopefully staying on top of things, writing every single day. Good job. That's where we are, just to keep in touch on that one. And then to collect today's badge, you are going to comment on the replay of today's session with your most engaged topic based on the lessons we share today on mining your analytics. There's also a deep dive, of course, on this one. This one is really cool. It's how you take one breakout data point and really use it to double down, send it back through the endless idea generator, and you realize that all you need is one breakout data point to go and go wild. So great stuff. And then obviously the text-based curriculum is there for you as well.
This might be my favorite deep dive of ours because it is the most, once you see it, you can't unsee it. We're going to expose you to the thinking in today's session, but the deep dive really gives you something tangible to walk through. So I highly encourage you to go make use of that. Okay, today, what are we breaking down? We are going to first go through the different signals that you should be paying attention to. So how do you tell where there's opportunities to double down? And then second, we're going to show you exactly how to do that. So the first part is, what do you notice? And then the second part is, after you notice it, what do you do with it? Okay. So Dickie, the infamous, you've made noise for 22 days. Now it's time to listen for signal. You want to maybe prep this idea for people?
What the thing to focus on here is the reason we write every single day for 30 days is because we compress an entire year of writing down into a 1-month sprint. And if you were to post once a week, once a month, etc., this would take you almost a year to have enough data, both externally and internally, to start to evolve what it is you're writing about. And that is the beauty of Ship 30, is you are accelerating your feedback loops across the board, both externally and internally. So in the first 22 days, you've put out a lot of things. You've had days where you sat down and the words just flew from your fingertips. You had some days that were a little bit more of a struggle. You probably had some days where your atomic essay took off and had a bunch of engagement. And then you probably had a day that, honestly, the day after, you're like, okay, today's the day I'm getting another one. This one is great. I think it's going to go viral again. And nothing happened. You heard crickets, right? So you go the highs and lows of the entire writing experience all in 30 days. And now we're going to talk about how you can think what, based on your first 22 days, where should you go from here, right? Because we know one thing for sure is that writing online is not a 30-day thing. You're going to do this for a very long time. Now we're going to lay the foundation of where do you go from here?
Yes. And so the first big idea is that all signal is good signal. So even when you write something and you go, well, I don't have any data to play with, the fact that you don't have data is a data point itself, right? Because as we talked about in the last session, if you remember, we explained how these social platforms and algorithms work. It doesn't matter if you have 1 million followers or you have 1 follower, right? It's all based on ratios. And so the feed takes what you wrote, it feeds it out to 20 people. And based on the number of people who engage with it, it decides, do I want to send it to more people? Do I want to send it to more people? Do I want to send it to more people? So the person with 1 follower has the same chance of going viral as someone with 1 million followers. Just internalize that. So in order to extract insight, it's worth recognizing that all signal, whether you're getting a bunch of data or you're not, is trying to teach you something.
So drop in the chat. Let's talk about this for a second. How do you, on a scale of 1 to 10, feel about your understanding of what to look for in your analytics? So if you sit down and you look at your TypeShare dashboard, how do you think about, on a scale of 1 to 10, which of these columns are important? What should I look at? How do I make an informed decision? All right, so 3 to 10, 3, 3, 2, 4, 3, 7, 4, 3, 3. Cool. Okay, so our goal is to take you to about a 10 after this session. And the way we're going to do that is, here, Cole, can you flip to the next slide? Is this? There we go. Okay. So all of these different data points you're going to generate are, I actually lost my train of thought. Where do we go before that one, Cole?
The big idea here is what you want to pay attention to is not just the numbers itself, which we're going to show you. We're going to show you, okay, when you're looking at the numbers, this is what you should notice. But it's also the fact that every time you write, everything that you're publishing is like a mini science experiment. And so you have to pay attention to, well, what am I actually doing? So take these 2 examples, right? Most people just go, I wrote 2 things. And what we want to show you how to do is actually go layers deep and go, okay, this tweet on the left, over the past 10 years, I have read over 500 business books. What's the difference between that and the one on the right? In 2017, Harvard Business Review published an article titled, you don't need to read anything else than the first sentence. What's the difference? My credibility, not my credibility, right? 2 different data points. Do readers want to hear about me, from me? Or do readers want to hear about what I have to say from a reputable publication or from someone else who has credibility? First data point, right? Then we keep going. One on the left. 99% were one idea stretched across 300 pages. They should have just been blog posts. Very strong opinion, right? One on the right. Hey, you should read more science fiction. Not as strong of an opinion. 2 different data points. Do readers want to hear strong opinions from me? Or do they want to hear lukewarm, mild opinions from me? Right? One on the left, you should read these 10 books. One on the right, you should read these 8 books. Is the difference between 10 and 8 going to make that big of a difference? Probably not. But is it worth recognizing that those are 2 different data points? Yeah. Which one worked better, 10 or 8? Cool, let's pay attention, right? The one on the left, I use an emoji. The one on the right, I also use the thread emoji plus the finger down, right? Is that going to make a huge difference? Probably not, but 2 different data points, right? 1 emoji, 2 emojis, 4 lines, 5 lines, right? And so what we're hoping to do is to unlock the fact that every time you sit down to write, you are sharing a science experiment. And your job is to put things side by side and go, what was I doing here? And what variables changed here? And what was the result? And if you foster that thinking, all of a sudden it's impossible for you to not improve over time. Impossible, right? And most people don't. They just go, I published 2 things and I don't know, which means you're never going to get better.
This is the POV to just keep in mind is every time you sit down to write and everything you've hit publish on, you can take it as far as you want in terms of investigating and going deep on it, right? So a lot of people would look at these 2 and say, they're the same thing. But there are so many layers of depth, which is why writing online, once you start to internalize it as a data-driven experiment and continue to treat your writing like a startup using the lean writing approach, you're going to say, wow, it's so fun to analyze and test and try different things because you're always improving versus, hey, I just put some ideas out there. None of them really took off. I didn't get enough engagement to make any decision. I'm done. Right.
Yeah. And I want to be very specific here. The 2 lists that we're showing you here are either one of these quote unquote right. I have no idea. All I'm doing is I'm just sitting down going, what are the differences, right? I could get so specific where I go, hey, in the first sentence on the one on the left, the comma's in the middle. And in the one on the right, the comma is like right at the beginning of the sentence. Is that data point really what's going to make a difference? Probably not. But the fact that I'm willing to ask the question is what reveals the opportunity. Right? So our job is not to tell you, hey, if you do these 5 things, it's guaranteed to work and you're going to wake up tomorrow and you're a millionaire and then everything's better, right? That is not the takeaway. The takeaway is here's how to ask questions so that you can form your own hypotheses so that you can improve over time. And if you are actively improving over time, there is no way that you're not going to get better, right?
100%. So go ahead, drop in the chat. Have you been looking at your writing through a data-driven lens at all so far this cohort? Or have you just been putting ideas out there? No, yes, no. So about 50-50. Yes, no, not really. And that's okay. And the whole point of Ship 30 is you don't necessarily have to look at the data during the first 30, during the whole course. You could just generate data points and then spend your next cohort when you come back as part of the captain's table of, okay, now I'm going to double down on this one. And if that works, maybe I'll do another cohort. I just double down on this one. It's all about creating volume with this. And so I saw a couple people say, I don't think I have enough data to make an informed decision. Why, if you feel that way, where I don't know what to do with my signal, what are some of the reasons you're not sure about using data-driven writing? So drop in the chat, what's keeping you back from saying, I don't know what to double down on?
Yeah, what's the belief?
So you're not sure where to look, not enough engagement, not experimenting broadly enough, nothing individually jumps out, not sure which stat to use, what engagement means, not getting much engagement, not enough engagement, not enough engagement, not enough engagement. Okay, so we're going to break all of these individual beliefs throughout of how much engagement you need, what to look at. So let's dive in because we're going to cover all this.
So first, let's talk about these are very objective signals, okay? So when you post something on the internet, the first layer of data is it's the objective response, right? How many views, how many likes, how many comments, how many shares, and who's engaging, right? So what's the type of person that's engaging? And the reason these are so helpful is because even though none of them are like, you're never going to get a perfect answer, right? If anyone has ever worked in data, data is not perfect. In fact, most data and data sets are very messy, right? And so if you're waiting for the data set to be perfect, you're never going to extract any insight. The goal of looking at data is to look for broad strokes, right? Which way is the wind blowing? That's really the goal. So let's walk through each one of these and look at how does this impact your takeaway when you write and publish something. So the first is views. Views is, I mean, it can be impressions, some platforms call it impressions, some platforms call it views. All this is like, here's the total number of people who saw it or maybe saw it. That's all. And so even though it's not a perfect metric, what it's telling you is which way the wind is blowing. Is this a topic that people are interested in? Is this not a topic people are interested in? And so even though views aren't the most important metric, it can be a helpful way of just sort of getting a sense of, is this something that a ton of people resonate with, or does this not have very much reach?
So views are, for a lot of people, a vanity metric, where they will write something with the sole intent to generate as many views as possible. And where that kind of goes wrong is you're not optimizing for any kind of density, because just because someone views something, think about all the things you view throughout the day that you don't care about, right? A view could be, I saw it and I actually scrolled past it, right? So it's just the algorithm put it there. And the fact that someone's eyeballs went on it, it's like, that got a lot of views. Now, that's why when we do our analytical deep dives, we actually don't look at views. We start to think about what's a little bit more important, and that is someone actually engaged with it. Because someone can passively scroll something, it counts as a view, and they don't care. It didn't resonate with them. You didn't write a strong enough hook or headline, or write about something specific enough, or put it in front of the right people. So views are just the very first metric. The lightest level of engagement someone can do is like something. They say, this was good enough to get my attention. I saw it. I'm going to give you a nod, some kind of nod of acknowledgement, right? Again, not the holy grail either, but it's a good way of saying, when you look at views, likes is a little bit more of, you wrote something that at least resonated with someone. And think about yourself, right? You see a lot of things, but what does it take for you to like something? It has to, you have to resonate. You have to feel something. It's putting your small stamp of approval on it. So you're trending in the right direction as you see likes start to creep up on most of your posts.
Yes, all of these kind of build on each other, right? So views is like the lowest barrier to entry, like kind of what's going on. The like is the first time that someone has to take an action, right? The comment then is someone goes, there's something here that forces me to want to be part of the conversation, right? So if you start to weigh these, which is more valuable, like the number of views or the number of comments? Well, the number of comments is probably going to tell you more than just pure views, right? And so for me and Dickie, we talk about this all the time, is when we're creating our own content, we're like, what are the topics that are most likely to get people to ask questions? What are the topics most likely that get people to share an opinion? And over time, you start to notice, you're like, oh, every time I write this thing, I get a dozen questions. Amazing. What a great data point. You should write about that thing more, right? Versus every time I write about this topic, yeah, I get a decent amount of views, but literally no one comments. Different data point. Right. And so again, there's no right answer here. The important part is that you start to ask the question, why are things happening? Right. Whereas most people who write online, they write, they hit publish, and then they just don't do anything. Right. They leave. It's not, I publish, now I'm done. It's you publish, now you begin. Now you start the journey. Right. So the comment is the deepening of the conversation. Then even layer above that is then the shares, right? So what happens when I share something? When I share something, I'm basically saying, I found this so valuable that I want my identity to be attached to it. You said it better than I ever could. That's why I want to share it, right? So if someone shares something you wrote, you don't just go, cool. Right? You sit there and you look at what you wrote and you go, what made someone share this? What was I doing? Go back to the lists, right? Were they sharing a strong opinion or were they not sharing a strong opinion? Were they sharing a listicle or not sharing a listicle, right? You start to ask these questions, and over time, you begin to assemble your own toolkit where you go, I know every time I use a strong opinion, I use a moment in time opener, I write about this topic, I focus on solving this problem, I'm going to get comments. This is the stuff people want to engage with, right? You're no longer guessing. You know, based on data, what's going to work. That's the whole point. And then
did I disappear? I just realized that my camera is off. Sorry. I'm still here. My camera's off. All good. Here, keep going.
Okay. Yeah. See if you can get it working again. And then the fifth is it's not just that people are engaging, right? It's who's engaging. So if I get a retweet from an account with 20 followers, cool. I want to pay attention to that. But if I get a retweet from Dickie, I want to know, like, whoa, Dickie just retweeted my stuff, right? So you start to pay attention to who are the types of people that are consuming my content. You might not get a lot of views, but you might write something that your idol engages with. That's valuable, right? Why did they do that? You can start to form all these hypotheses and build your own toolkit.
So the overarching thing we want to drive home is that it's about the density of engagement. And that's why we focus on comments, shares, and peer approval. Because when you put something out there, if you think you're not getting enough engagement, but you had one comment and everything else you had 0, that is a big data point. Massive data point, because you put something out that needed some kind of clarification. And then it's not, oh, I got a comment, like now I just move on to the next topic. If you carefully study what someone said in the follow-up question, that can guide your next month of content.
Yep.
Month, one data point, one question of, wow, I liked this. How do you think about this? And I'll give you guys an example. So I wrote a couple atomic essays like I was sharing earlier and about journaling this cohort. And I've been gathering data based on the comments of what people are saying. And one of the most common questions I've been getting is, why do you journal freehand versus on a computer? Everyone asks that because I think everyone wants to know, like, why? I'm not sure which one to do. Why do you do it? So I'm putting together like this big 20 reason list of why I journal handwritten. All the different things of why I think it's better. I've tried both. I've experimented with everything. And that all came from just a couple comments of people continually saying, why do you do it handwritten? And that you all have the ability to do when someone asks one single question. And here's how you can take it further. When, say, every one of us, me, Cole, Daniel, every person on this call once started out with 0 followers. And we have had to iterate and bootstrap our way all the way up to where we are now. And so wherever you are in your journey, we have been there at that exact point, getting that level of engagement.
Mm-hmm.
So what did we do? When say you have 10 followers and you get a comment, DM that person and have a conversation with them. That one comment generates enough interest for you to say, hey, thanks for asking that question. Do you have any other questions about this topic? Or would you want to hop on a quick Zoom call, get to know one another? I'd love to hear what else you'd like to know about this. Then you have 50 new data points. If literally someone just likes your post, you could reach out to them and say, hey, appreciate that this resonated. What was it? What else would you like to know? You do not need 100 comments to be like, oh, that is the signal that I need to double down.
Yeah.
Instead, it's take whatever level of engagement you're getting and say, I'm going to extract as much signal from this as I possibly can.
Yes. And the thing to round this all out, which goes back to all signal is good signal. It's the Einstein quote. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, right? If you're writing about a topic or you're writing in a certain way that is getting you 0, is getting you nothing, right? I guarantee something's there, but you think it's nothing. The takeaway is not everyone else is wrong. Just sit with that, right? The takeaway is not everyone else is wrong and I'm the genius and I just don't understand why the internet's broken for me, right? The internet's not broken. There's no scarcity. We all have the same level of abundance. We can all unlock rapidly exponential and rewarding digital futures for ourselves. Every single person, right? The internet is not wrong. So if you are writing about something that is not giving you the result that you desire, then maybe you should stop writing about that thing and you should try something else. Experiment, try new topics, right? This is the hardest part, is like, if you want to unlock the external results, you are not just writing for yourself. You're writing for other people. So if one person says, hey, I don't understand, you don't sit there and go, I have no data, right? You DM that person, you go, what don't you understand? And they go, well, I've just never created a system like this for myself. You go, thank you so much. You know what my next thread is going to be? How to create a system just like you. Just for someone like you. And then 2 more people show up and go, well, that was really helpful, but now that you're explaining the system, I just have never understood how to connect the system to this other thing. You go, thank you so much. That's what my next atomic essay is going to be about. That is the learning process versus I write one thing. I don't understand why I don't have 1 million likes. I guess it's all broken. This is a pointless game, right? So let's bring it back to now, what do we do with this, right? Which of these data points have you been paying attention to, right? Are you too focused on views? Are you too focused on likes? Are you too focused on comments, right? What has been getting your attention? And ask yourself, why? Why have you been gravitating to that one metric?
We really need to make a slide kind of breaking down the harsh truths we just shared, Cole, because there's really 2 types of writers. There's, if they were getting the same level of engagement, they both had 50 followers, 25 followers, and they both were getting 2 likes and 1 comment. Person A over here is sitting here, and they might not even be on this call because they did the first 15 days of Ship 30 and said, I'm not getting any engagement, I quit.
Yes.
And then there's person 2 that looks at every single engagement as an absolute opportunity goldmine. 3 likes, 1 retweet, 1 comment. I sent a personalized video to the person that commented asking if they had any more questions, right? You can take an extreme ownership of your digital trajectory if you say, every person that gives me the slightest bit of time, I'm going to pay it forward to them and figure out how I can continue to help solve their problem. And this goes to your point, right? So say you DM someone and they said, yeah, I didn't understand how to create that system. So you write that thread and then you DM it to them and say, hey, I wrote this for you.
What's the likelihood they're going to engage?
Right. What's the likelihood they engage with that? 100%. What's the likelihood that if that individual person has that problem, that there are hundreds of thousands of people just like it? That is what we want to break through, is that the scale of the internet guarantees that if one person is asking a question or commenting in a certain way or looking for clarification, there are millions of people just like them. And you do not need a massive audience to do any of this. 2 years ago, I had 0 followers on Twitter, 0. Started my account, August 2020, right? You do not need a massive audience to do this thing if you treat it like a science experiment and really take ownership of what you're trying to do.
Yes. This is if you can unlock this belief, you are going to be living in the future. Living in the future. So now let's get into some very actionable. Okay, so how do you do this, right? So you can break the belief and you go, okay, I notice I got 1 comment, right? Or I typically get, 2 shares, I got 5 shares. That's a breakout data point, right? That's more than double. Okay. So part of becoming quote unquote prolific isn't that you sit down every day and you come up with a new idea. Being prolific means going into your analytics and going, what worked? Let me do a different version of that. That's all you're doing. Every time when Dickie and I sit down and do our content every week, the first step numero uno, is open your analytics and see what worked. And if you're not starting there, then you're starting with, I'm reinventing the world, right? You don't need to reinvent the world. Let's go into your analytics and you can sort by views. You can sort by comments. You can sort by likes. You can sort by any of these metrics. And you should start by going, what topics get the most views, right? What formats prompt the most comments? Just start asking these questions. There's no right answer. Just what am I doing that's yielding an external result? So what happens, and Dickie, maybe you want to explain this, but all you're doing is just taking what's working and doing it in a different version. You're saying the same thing 100 different ways versus trying to say 100 different things once.
So a couple questions here. Engagement rate is the most important metric that you have. So an engagement is a like, a comment, or a share. So when someone takes action on your piece of writing, so they like it, they comment, they engage, they retweet, whatever it is. The ratio of engagements to views. So think of if you wrote something that every single person who saw commented or shared, it would have 100% engagement. That'd be the best possible thing you could write. And I'll tell you what would happen if when Twitter puts your tweet out there and it shows it to its 10 people to test the algorithm and all 10 engage with it, that thing is going to get 1 million likes, 1 million. Because it's going to say just from that little subgroup, oh my God, this is going to keep every person who looks at it on the platform. Let's show it to everybody. Everybody. That is the art of virality. So engagement rate is all about saying, let's take away the vanity metric that is views and say how many people are engaging with this. So when I sit down, and Cole and I, we did this, what did we do it last Friday for our
last Friday, yeah.
Call? We looked at each other's tweets and essays and threads from the last month and said, let's look at engagement rate and break these down. What worked and what didn't. And a lot of people on the internet think that being a prolific writer is coming up with 1,000 new ideas. And it's not. It's finding 1 or 2 core ideas and finding 1,000 different ways to repackage, repeat, and say them again. Alex Hormozy has this great quote that says, we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. And so 90% of writing on the internet is sharing things that are obvious to you now that you might get sick and tired of saying over and over again. How many times do you think I've written about how to write an engaging headline, or how to build a writing habit, or how to find your sacred hours? A lot. And every single time someone says, wow, thank you for sharing this. This was extremely helpful, because you know that if something worked one time, it's going to continue working. So Cole, if you look at this one, right, here are 2 threads that basically say the exact same thing. The big POV is college failed in teaching me to write. It got a lot of engagement the first time. I repackaged it the second time, talked about very similar things. And what do you know? Both of these went massively viral, right? Both of them had very high engagement rates right from the beginning. And you could see that they were going to take off because it resonated with people. And I've probably written 5 or 6 different threads and hooks that use the same core idea. And once you find that, you can reuse it over and over again because you know it works. And slowly over time, as you keep writing, you build up all these ideas that you know work. And once you have ideas that work, you just keep writing about them.
So let's take this to the next level here. We're going to move quickly, but there's a bunch of things that you could repeat if you had something like this, right? So let's just, the one on the left, this tweet goes big time viral. That means we should extract as many hypotheses as we can from this, right? Let's try and replicate it a dozen different ways. So what's the first thing we can repeat? The world's most valuable skill, blank. Maybe that lead in is what got people. Let's go try it 10 more times and see, right? Colleges charge you big number, 120K, and still do a terrible job teaching. Maybe that hook really emotionally triggered people. Let's go use that hook 10 more times and see, right? Here are 9 writing frameworks that will save you hundreds of hours. Maybe readers are really captivated by writing frameworks that save you time. Let's go try and write 10 more atomic essays and 10 more atomic threads that are writing frameworks that save you time, right? One on the right, college completely failed in teaching me how to write. Maybe that's an amazing first sentence. Let's go use that same first sentence 25 different times. Maybe that's what's hooking people, right? So I spent over 500 hours studying legendary authors and copywriters. Maybe that credibility point is what readers are really gravitating to. Let's go use that credibility point 100 more times, right? This is how you use it, right? You don't just write one thing and go, well, I hope my whole life is different. No, you write something, you look at it, you go, what are the different variables? And then how do I repeat those variables 100 times more? And I start to form. So by the time when Dickie and I sit down to write our content, I literally verbatim know exactly what sentences are going to work. Why do I know that? Because I have about 3,000 articles of data telling me, hey, I've tested a bunch of different things, and these are the sentences that really grab people, right? Or being a writer in the digital world is not you putting on a chapeau, lighting a candle, smoking your corncob pipe, and staring out a window going, I hope today is magical. Being a writer in the digital world is writing, gathering data, and then doubling down on the things that work over and over and over again.
And this is the key to building an audience. An audience is a group of people who love what you're sharing consistently. And so when you find, and they're interested in all the ideas that you share. So the way to build an audience is, hey, I've started to figure out 1 or 2 ideas. Now I just hammer those ideas home and I attract more people because you've become known for a niche that you share ideas consistently in, right? So this is all about, you find a couple of ideas that work, you start to write about them more people come and are attracted to it because you're getting more specific, then you're attracting a more and more kind of niche audience of people who say, hey, when I want to learn about digital automation, I go read all Daniel's atomic essays because he's writing a ton of them and he's sharing valuable things. And I know him. Hey, I'm going to go tell everyone I know that's interested in digital automation, go read these. And they're going to tell their friends. And that's how you build an audience. So it's all a data-driven process, not just I throw things out there and I don't know what's working, I'm just going to keep writing. No, at some point you have to say what's working, how can I double down on those? And then you iterate.
Yes. And so here's a great example. This was one data point that I found in my own writing that I thought was interesting. Maybe if I write about writing topics, but the 101 version, right? Just the beginner version, maybe that's a data point I can double down on. So what did I do? I wrote ghostwriting 101, freelance writing 101, writing on Medium 101, self-publishing 101, right? I wrote like 50 of these 101 threads, and some performed better than others. But as an average, most of my 101 writing content outperformed the other stuff. Why? Because I know based on data that that's an idea that people are more likely to engage with, right? And I didn't know until I started testing that. And so what happened? Yeah, Rob kind of put it in the chat, right? When other people started seeing me do this, they took my data point and went, well, maybe I should write about my topic 101. And then all of a sudden I started seeing other 101 stuff popping up everywhere, right? So it's not just data for yourself, but it's also data that's all around you too. Like when I see Dickie write something that goes viral, I don't just think good for Dickie. I think good for me, right? What can I write that's my version of that, right? Those are the questions that are worth being asked.
There are no shortage of eyeballs on the internet. This is a positive sum game, right? Every time someone else writes something that goes viral, you should start clapping for yourself because I'm going to take that. I'm going to figure out what worked with it and I'm going to apply it to my niche, right? Every time there's a new topic, you stay on the cutting edge, you put your topic into that format and say, I know that's going to work, right? This is all a game. And so if you're still playing by now during Ship 30, you're stepping into the really fun part of the game where it's, I have all these ideas. I have a good number of data points. Now is when I start to double down. Now is when I start to explore. And that now is when it gets a lot of fun.
Yes. So what are some of the things that you can repeat, right? You can repeat the category. So over time, I go, a lot of people want to read about how to be a better writer, right? They want to read about writing. Okay, I'm going to write more about that topic, right? You can repeat the story. I've told this one, when I was 17 years old, I was one of the highest ranked World of Warcraft players in North America. How many times have I told that story on the internet? 1,000. When you find a story that you tell that works, you don't just tell it one time, you tell it a zillion times, and you extract different takeaways, and you point it in different directions, and sometimes you tell the long story and sometimes you tell the short story, but that story works, right? Play the hits. Play the hits, right? Give the people what they want, right? The format, you go, oh man, every time I break this down into a list format, readers really love it. Great, write more lists, right? Or every time I tell stories, but I tell them in the opposite direction, when I start with the ending and then I go to the beginning, it always works. Great, tell backwards stories, right? And you can also take the same content and apply it to different audiences. Oh, people want to read about writing. Okay, here's writing for self-published authors. Here's writing for people who want to write on Medium. Here's writing for people who want to write on Quora. Here's writing for people who want to, right? So you take your niche and you start applying it to who are all the different possible audiences that are interested in this one specific thing. And as you notice these things working, all you're doing is you're just going, I want to do that again. I want to do that again. I want to do that again.
And this is what writing is. It's figuring out the different things you can repeat and repackaging them. That's the thing to break through, is that once you find a couple core ideas, and you might not be there. It took me a long time to figure out that my core ideas are mostly around how to build a writing habit, journaling, and kind of personal growth as a 26-year-old. Right? Once I started to hit on those, I just started repeating the things I'm learning going on this journey. Right? And so you might not have these figured out. It's going to take a while. You might have figured it out in your first 30 days. It might take you 10 cohorts. Right? But this is what we're playing here, is how do I figure out, how do I just continue writing? That's the goal with all this, is I want just to figure out what I need to write tomorrow. That's what I'm using analytics for. So
yes,
this is my favorite part of writing, is treating it like a science experiment, because the ones who are the ones seeing all the big breakthroughs, right? The James Clears, the Morgan Housels, the Ryan Holidays, they've all taken this exact approach and said, after I've created a ton of stuff, what do I do with it? How do I figure out which things are actually resonating? And then all you need is one thing to be resonating, and you can build your entire career around it.
Mm-hmm. There is no one right answer. There is no one right answer. The whole takeaway here is that we are all figuring it out. We're all figuring it out. Dickie and I have no idea. We wake up every day and go, let's try some stuff. Right? So the biggest thing, we'll just keep it real, right? Like the underlying fear is, what if I do the wrong thing? I notice a lot of the questions in the chat, right? It's like very incremental. Do I do this or do I do this? Where does that come from? Fear. What if I do the wrong thing? Why? In school, you get punished for doing the wrong thing, right? On the internet, you get rewarded for doing the wrong thing. Why? Because doing something that's quote unquote wrong usually is what teaches you how to do it quote unquote right. So the whole takeaway here is experimentation, not here's the 5-point checklist and all you have to do are these 5 things and then automatically you have 1 million followers, right? Which is unfortunately what most audience building courses try and teach. That's not the takeaway. The takeaway is that we are all